Amazing. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another THI webinar. Today, given that it's the beginning of the year, we're still in the first quarter of the year. We're all sort of looking at how we can be growing and learning and developing. So I have got for you the legend that is Gemma Shambler to talk about basically developing a CPD strategy, but using a cultural assessment to inform that. So for anyone joining initially that has never been to one of our webinars before or who doesn't know what THI is, we're an employee engagement and happiness platform, basically giving organisations a bit of a landscape of what their culture looks like, so they can identify areas that they're doing well and areas that they might be struggling a bit in, so they can improve. And I'm Kashi. My name is not events team. My name is Kashi. I'm the community and events exec, so I do a lot of the community-based stuff, social media scheduling, and I put together these webinars and on occasion host them. But I will hand over to Jem to introduce herself.
Thank you very much, Kashi. I feel like you've bigged me up a bit too much there.
Never.
So I'm Gemma. I'm head of people at the Happiness Index. So I'm responsible for leading and directing our culture at the Happiness Index, along with obviously my colleagues, the founders and the community leaders at the Happiness Index. We are trying to create that thriving culture that Kashi was just talking about for our wonderful people that we have at the Happiness Index.
Absolutely amazing. And I think that this particular webinar topic is going to be really interesting because it kind of is a really good case study for, okay, cool, I've done a survey, I've got this data, now what the hell do I do with it? Do you know what I mean? So this is definitely going to help to provide some insight into how to then use that data that you collect and yeah, do something with it instead of just being like, right, cool, this is what's happening. Now what? So I guess, I mean, in today's landscape, CPD is such a huge and important topic and an important area for HR and organizations in general to get right. You know, we're seeing just from what I've been reading and from stories I've been hearing from people on the ground is like the need for qualifications is at an all-time high, but specifically like smaller ones almost. It's like people are definitely looking for more of like a jack of all trades rather than the master of one. So this, I guess, is kind of informing how important having a CPD strategy is within an organization, sort of giving your staff an opportunity to grow and progress and get on with their own learning, I guess. So in terms of how the cultural assessment worked, would you be able to, I guess, define that and maybe give us an insight into the role in the organizational development?
Yep. So firstly, I'm not surprised that that's the sort of thing that you've been hearing sort of being spoke about, because that aligns with the sort of trend we've been seeing over a number of years, in that, you know, careers aren't linear anymore. You no longer just climb that corporate ladder. People sort of have messy squiggly lines and want to have lots of strings to their bow, and I personally think that that's a positive, and that means that when people arrive with you or come to roles in your organisation, then they've got a much wider breadth of experience or knowledge or skills to draw upon. So that's only going to be a benefit from what I can see.
100%.
So in terms of the cultural assessment, just to maybe give a little bit of a background to that and kind of a bit of a explanation as to what it is in case anybody doesn't know. So that survey, it's a real perfect opportunity to provide that sort of moment in time for reflection from your people. So it enables us to gain insight and really understand how people are feeling, as well as the engagement levels with work. So like you said, we are a happiness and engagement platform, so we very much care about both of those sides of the coin. And traditionally your engagement models would just focus on engagement and wouldn't necessarily seek to explore feelings or happiness in that way.
Yeah.
But we very much believe that you need to have a view of both of those sides in order to get an accurate picture as to what the culture is within your business, and find out really how people are feeling and what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in a broad nutshell what the cultural assessment kind of sets out to do, and the data and the feedback that you're setting out to collect when you do send that survey.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, when you get all of this information, then you are presented with scores and insights and data and comments that then highlight areas where you might need to improve on as an organisation, or areas that shine out as being ones that you want to maintain the good work you've already done, or build on any areas of strength.
Yeah.
So it really does kind of throw those areas up and help directly point you and steer you as a people team as to where to focus your resources and your energy and your people projects as well.
And how often do people typically do the cultural assessment? Like, for example, at THI, how often do we do it?
So recently we've been doing it once a year, and that's because we're still quite a small team. I think if we was to do that, we usually do recommend it's done every 6 months, but for us, being the size of business we are, we've done it recently every year instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does just depends on each individual business really, but 6 months to a year is usually the right time frame. The recommended time frame.
For sure. Amazing. Well, in terms of when you then go forward conducting a cultural assessment, could you talk us through like a bit about what the methodologies are behind that survey, and like sort of what you take into consideration before you do it?
Yeah, okay. So in terms of the survey itself, that the questions are all underpinned by neuroscience themes.
Yeah.
So there are 8 neuroscience themes that all contribute towards creating that thriving culture.
Yeah.
So split into 2 separate sections. The happiness and engagement side, as you might already be suspecting. The themes that relate to our happiness, our feelings, our heart would be safety, relationships, freedom and acknowledgement. And then on the head side, relating to and tying back into the engagement side of the model, the 4 themes would be meaning and purpose. It would be clarity, enablement and personal growth. So the one we're talking about obviously today is personal growth, having a big part to play in the engagement side of the model.
Hell yeah.
So, but in terms of actually kind of rolling out the survey, I would say that planning and preparation is key. So firstly, I would advise making sure that your data set, that your all of your people data is all up to date in the system well ahead of time. Everyone's got the right, the email addresses are spelled correctly, the filters are all correct, they're in the right teams, in the right departments, the right locations, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then secondly, the comms strategy behind your sort of launch of the survey, I think, is really important. So if you are doing surveys annually, like us, for example, then there's likely to be a good proportion of new starters within that time who have not taken this before, don't know what it's about, don't know why you do it, don't know
Yeah.
what you do with the information that you get. So they could be very skeptical as to what's going on. Um,
100%.
and even if they're not new to this approach and they have been with the business before and they have been through this process in the past, it's still good to reinforce, what the survey is, why you want to do it, what the purpose of it is, what you're going to do with the feedback that you get, reiterating the anonymity piece, and that all of the everything that comes back is going to be, in confidence. You won't know who it is that said what or given what score. And that it's, if it is an initiative that the people team in isolation are leading, like we do at the Happiness Index, then we can give people that assurance that their comments and their feedback is going to be treated with confidence and sensitively, to try
Absolutely.
to make sure that people are being open and honest, because the last thing you want is people just telling you what you want to hear. Otherwise it's a pointless exercise.
Exactly.
So yeah, making sure that that comms piece is prepared and is done in a good time frame in the run up to the launch, I think is important. And also during that period of time, referring back to your last survey and reminding your people kind of where you were at that point in time and the actions that you might have taken as a result or off the back of that last survey. And then those people who have been in the business for a while and been through the survey before, as well as the new people, will then see that you are actually taking notice of what they're saying, and the feedback that they're giving is having an impact, and it is directing the course of the business or of the people teams projects or whatever it might be.
100%. I definitely find it really useful when like the last cultural assessment we did internally, having sessions afterwards once the data had been collected sort of within our communities and our departments, to go over like a breakdown of the data within our department, as well as getting an overview of what the whole organization is like. That really helps to provide a lot of clarity for us.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like, so post survey, I think that's really helpful, and I really like that approach that we take. I think that it's really important as well, because you get we can give the broad company level overview to everybody as to the scores and the feedback, but in small companies like ours and in larger companies, there can be varying experiences depending on which team that you work in or which department you work in. And so it's really important to break it down by the appropriate filters for your business as well. So for us, that's our different communities. And then we as a people team will go into those communities and present the results, not just for the company as a whole, but also for that community, so that you can see where you may align with your colleagues in other communities, or where you may differ. And also you sometimes might find that there's areas that are quite specific to one community, perhaps, that aren't necessarily reflected elsewhere. So if you're only looking at it as a whole zoomed out piece, then you could miss the opportunity to be able to, work on something or tweak something within that community that's going to really benefit that group of individuals.
100%, 100%. So we've kind of talked a bit about the cultural assessment itself, but in terms of like people's learning, how do you think that like the culture at an organization can help shape people's like learning approach?
Yeah, well, I think it has a big impact on the approach that people take. For us at the Happiness Index, we are very passionate about human beings being individuals and having their own unique perspectives, their own unique experiences, their own unique you likes and dislikes, and our vision of freedom to be human, which encapsulates that sentiment and also brings in those 8 neuroscience themes that we've spoken about as being the conditions to which any human should be able to thrive at work. And having that so kind of ingrained in the DNA of our company means that it just wouldn't suit us, and it wouldn't work if we then tried to provide a blanket approach to learning, or sort of, like, for us to think that there would be one golden bullet solution that would suit everybody and everyone would like to learn the same and learn the same thing and go on the same course or whatever it might be. So I think that culture that we have created at the Happiness Index, where freedom within a framework, we like to create processes that give enough guidance to provide the clarity that people are looking for, but then also allow that flexibility that means that they can tailor their approach to suit them as an individual, or for a community leader to suit their team as a whole. And then we think that that's more aligned with our culture and also better suited to sort of enabling that thriving culture and that unique human sort of led approach. So to give you an example, we have a Grow and Blossom budget at the Happiness Index, and so that's a budget that is like a per person budget, and each individual would sit down with their manager and they would discuss how best to use that budget, what they'd like to use that budget on, as a consequence of like an appraisal conversation, a review conversation, a career mapping conversation as well. So they all of those processes feed into that point. And then what you might spend your budget on, Kashi, would be completely different to what Laura in the people team would spend her budget on. There might be a group of people, we have had a group of people who have decided to all go through a similar certification together. But that was that's because that's right for those people, and that's something that they're passionate about, that they want to explore more of, and that they want to sort of bring those skills back into their day-to-day role as well.
And the way that people can use that is really quite broad, isn't it? So it could be anything from like a course, or like a course, or taking lessons in something, to like buying a book on tech and AI or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It could be anything on that spectrum. It could be a formal kind of learning course, an in-person formal learning experience where you'd go to something for a number of weeks. It could be signing up to some e-learning and having like different modules that you'd be downloading and working through. It could be a subscription to certain platforms or memberships, like industry sort of memberships, so like CIPD memberships, for example, things like that. Or like you said, if somebody wants to do like their own reading and research, then yes, they can spend their budget on books and learning materials like that for them to work through at their own pace. So it's really varied how people have spent it in the past.
Amazing.
The
So
important is that it just ties back into, their goals and their career aspirations and where it is that they see themselves going, or
100%.
something that's going to help them in their role at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, the Grow and Blossom budget has been so useful in terms of helping me to expand and, well, not necessarily just expand, but like hone in on my skills in my job. So being able to use it for like a part of it for like a task management software has been really useful for me, because I have ADHD. So being able to then have that so I can sort my life out basically has been so useful. And then, being able to look at using the rest of my budget, I'm currently looking at sign language courses
Oh,
to use it for, because I think that it could be really helpful within webinars if I could learn how to use sign language a little bit for accessibility, to then be able to, you know, maybe sign along a little bit while I'm talking. That would be really, really cool.
oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Love
So
that.
yeah,
You'd have to teach the rest of us some sign language.
absolutely.
Love
We'll
to
get
know
on
that.
that.
Yeah,
Everyone
brilliant.
signing. But yeah, so bringing it all together now, how tell me the story. Tell me the story of that culture, from that cultural assessment, how we got to the CPD strategy that is in place now.
Okay, so last year not last year, the year before last, when we run our cultural assessment in 2022,
Yeah.
one of the areas that came up as being a lower scoring area for us was personal growth. So as I said earlier, that's obviously one of the key neuroscience themes on the engagement side, in order to help with providing that thriving culture for people. I think a lot of the time you would expect to see personal growth being a lower scoring area, because particularly in the businesses I've worked in, everyone is a very ambitious, they've always been very ambitious creatures and really keen to succeed and to learn and really thrive on that sort of, they've got that thirst for knowledge, which is brilliant. And I think that is also, that's also common in other businesses as well, that everyone's always wanting more. You can't give them enough learning opportunities, which is great. And I think that just goes back to showing how important that theme is for people and to have that in their working environment. But clearly we wasn't going to just dismiss it as like, oh yeah, you know, everyone always wants more training and development. We delved into that in a bit more detail, and we was able to find out that what we needed to do was to bring some more clarity to our annual review process, so like our appraisal process, and our career development plans, and also have a way of tying both of those things into an individual's learning and development goals as well. So what we did as a result of getting that feedback and getting that insight from our 2022 survey, was made that a key focus for our people plans and our people strategy for the next year. So we overhauled the processes that we've already got. We reviewed all of those. We set out to provide clearer, up-to-date guidance on our review process. We also then linked that into career road mapping as well, and tried to bring all of the sort of segmented processes together in one, in a hopefully an easier to follow process, with guidance and training for the managers that would be going through that, as well as explaining it to all of our people as well, and showing them how to use the new templates and things like that. So we also, I mean, it took a long time to do all of this stuff, and whilst we was kind of in the midst of working through various stages of this project, we spoke about it a lot as a people team. I think if you asked anyone at the Happiness Index, what is it that Laura and Gemma are working on, they would have answered grow and blossom over the last 12 months.
100%.
So we spoke about it a lot. We promoted what we was doing a lot. We gave regular updates in our monthly company meetings as to where we'd got up to with things and what stage of the project we was at. So we didn't just kind of get our results from the cultural assessment, say this is going to be our action plan, and then keep quiet about it and just launch it when it was all singing and all nice and all tied up in a bow. We sort of brought everyone along on the journey with us, and I think that really helped, because by the time that we was ready to sort of go live with the new documentation and the new templates and the new process, everyone was already familiar with the language we was using. Everyone was already had a rough idea as to what it was that we was up to and what we was getting at. And it wasn't a surprise for anybody. Everyone had known where it had come from as well and why it had come about. So I think that really helped as well. And then when we ran our cultural assessment in the autumn of last year, so 2023, we then saw that all of our hard work had paid off, and the personal growth scores increased by 23%. So yes, that's we are very, very proud of. And it just goes to show that the investment in that lower scoring area from our people project side of things and from the work that we was doing, it really did have a big impact on how our people felt at work and how engaged they were at work as well. So it's still not a perfect process. We recognize that there's still tweaks to be made, which we'll always be looking at and striving for. But yeah, we were really chuffed to see that big of a percentage increase on the scores.
That is amazing. I mean, yeah, anyone at THI knows you guys put so much work into that whole initiative, and it's been amazing. I mean, it's really reassuring and nice to have been so informed about the whole process even while you were developing it, because it just showed us that you weren't just taking the data and being like, right, cool, we're going to sit on it. It was like, okay, cool, we answered this, we said these things, we asked for this, and actually it's being taken into consideration and being developed, and it's like, okay, cool, you've asked your staff to have a voice and now you're listening to it, which is really nice.
Yeah,
exactly. Definitely. And it's, yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be, oh, it's really nice, but we're getting there in terms of the world. It should be normal, but yes. But I guess, I mean, with everything comes challenges. So in terms of challenges that an organization might face when they're trying to put these kinds of initiatives in place and align them with their culture, what do you think, what kind of challenges do you think might crop up, and how can we be overcoming those?
Well, I think the first one that springs to mind would be that, especially in larger organizations, change like this or like that would take a lot of time to implement and to sort of embed. It's easier. We have for us who've got the luxury of a smaller team, that we've got we've got touch points, various different touch points with almost everybody on a regular basis. So people in much larger organizations don't always have that luxury. So that would definitely be a challenge, in the sense that if it's a vast if it's a big thing like what we was doing, to have to do that in a large organization, you might not be able to turn it around as quickly, and so that might be a challenge in the sense of trying to figure out where to start.
Yeah.
And what I would say is to pick elements of, it might be, if it is personal growth, if it is that learning piece, that is a massive people, they're in large organizations, there are whole teams of people that are the learning and development teams. So it's not going to be something that can be quickly fixed overnight, but you can pick areas within that personal growth space and that are from the data that you've been given, that will have the highest impact on your people, and focus your time, your efforts, your resources on those, sort of break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks or more manageable projects, and just focus on those smaller areas first. And don't try to do everything all at once, so that you can, like we did, sort of take people on the journey and sort of focus on this bit first and be like, right, we've got this bit up and running, or this is what it looks like now, and then sort of move on from there. Other challenges that people might face is getting buy-in from their senior leadership team, from their CEOs, from the board, and they might need to, convince them, show them evidence as to why it's worth investing in these areas. So that's a common challenge that I think HR teams face when coming up against things like this. What else? Trying to think off the top of my head now. They're the two that come, the big two that come to the top of my head.
I would agree. Those are like the two that I would immediately think of. And, when it comes to getting buy-in, I think the more data you have, the better. The more sort of like information you can bring to the people up top, or whatever, the people with the briefcases and the checkbooks, that is only going to help your case, and kind of being able to show that your people want to be here, but they also need to be able to grow. And if you can facilitate that, then if anything, it's only going to motivate them further and give them a reason to stay.
Yeah, exactly. And the old saying about, what if we train people and they leave, or what if we don't train them and they stay? So and I'm a firm believer that investment you make in people's future is only going to pay back in dividends. And eventually, yes, they may go off onto different things. And I think it would be silly to expect people to stay with you for an extremely long period of time these days. But you never know where your paths are going to cross again. And if you treated them well, you've helped them along their journey, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember that they might use you as a service provider in the future, or want to collaborate with you on a deal, or you never know what the future might bring.
Exactly.
And I think that it's the right thing to do for people. They will, what you put in, you need to put in to get some things back, don't you? And
Absolutely.
if you're not investing in them, they're not going to invest in the work that they're doing, and in your organization to the fullest.
100%, 100%. And especially with the way that the landscape of work is looking at the moment, with the entry of sort of Gen Z and lower into the workplace, what people are looking for in a job has completely shifted from how it was, I don't know, like 40, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. What people are looking for in a job is so different. People are now looking for a lot more flexibility, are looking for those kinds of growth opportunities, because of the fact that they want to try loads of different things. Portfolio careers have never been more like desired by people than right now. So if you can provide that for your staff, like, the more they're going to want to stay with you, and the more they're going to want to invest and give back to your business. For
And
me
as well,
personally, like, having that definitely is a motivator, because I'm like, okay, cool, you're taking care of me, and if I stay here, that means that I can keep using that grow and blossom budget every year, and I can keep doing that, and I can keep getting better and learning new things, because you're actually taking an interest in my development.
exactly. And I think the other thing that people are looking for as well is that meaning and purpose piece. They want to know that their work is making a difference, that they're working for an organization that's got strong moral compass, and stands by its values. And people find meaning and purpose in lots of different ways. And I think that the continuous process of learning and evolving and growing is another part of the meaning and purpose piece as well, and that brings a lot of purpose to people.
Exactly, 100%. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of our time, so any like final top tips, that's like sort of the key things that you think anyone watching here should take away from the whole process, basically, of putting out this cultural assessment, getting that data and putting it into action? what are Gem's top tips?
Oh, okay. I would say planning your comms strategy, taking time to plan your comms strategy would be my top tip, my first top tip. And yeah, don't sort of rush that or be quick to assume, oh, we haven't had that many new starters, everyone knows what this is and they'll find out by osmosis. I think yeah, being really clear about your purpose as to why you're rolling out the surveys that you are, and what it is that you're going to be doing with the information when it comes back to you.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I also think not to be afraid of kind of getting the timing perfect, because other stuff's going on. So being afraid of like, oh no, it's a bad time at the moment, so I don't want to send it now because it's all going to be negative feedback, or I'm worried what people are going to say about X, Y, and Z. I think, if you really want to be open and really be true to your listening strategy, then you need to get these things out and not to worry about in advance as to what's going to come back, because the point is that you're listening, and if you don't listen then you don't know and you're just guessing what people think and feel.
100%.
So it's really important to just go for it. And I think lastly, it would be to just remember to bring people along on your journey with you, and to share what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it, why you've taken the approach you have, how you think that that will help or benefit or have an impact in the organisation. And yeah, just keep those updates and information sharing coming.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I think everyone watching can agree that was incredibly useful. Gem, you're an absolute gem.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you everyone for watching. And we will catch you next time.
Thanks very much. See you soon.